Welcome to Thunder Thursday from the Oklahoma Newsroom. I'm Jenny Carlson here with part of our Thunder coverage team. I'm joined by columnist Barry Trammell, Thunder beat writer Eric Horn, and we just got to talk about the Thunder Warriors, guys. That's all there is to it. It's all anybody in the sports world wants to talk about, so why would we not join the fun? It was round 2, Wednesday night in Oakland. The first game ended up being kind of a dud, in terms of just the quality of play. Thunder was coming off a back-to-back, so had, kind of not much left in the tank. But last night, you saw a much more competitive game for longer. And then the fireworks. It was just interesting from start to finish, Eric.
Oh, it's fascinating from a TV standpoint, and for this continual narrative we have of Westbrook versus Durant and Westbrook versus the world and Thunder versus Warriors. It's fascinating from that aspect. But like from a basketball standpoint, it was such a great thing to see the Thunder play well and composed for 2 quarters, and that to me is what stood out the most until they had just a wild letdown in the third quarter, and that Kevin Durant guy got hot. But the Thunder has played. They started well in the first quarter in the first game that they played, and then Kevin Durant got hot and popped off in the second quarter. And then this game, they played 2 complete quarters. They had a couple of lapses here and there on defense, but otherwise they really played a really controlled, composed game that they needed to in a hostile environment. And it seems really, you're looking for silver linings in this, but you can really take some positives from the way that they play, particularly without Steven Adams in this first game. And that's me trying to talk about the basketball aspect of it as opposed to all the hot stuff.
Well, there's a lot of layers to talk about.
Plenty of layers.
But the basketball, Barry, I think Eric brings up a good point because, without Steven Adams, I think maybe the general consensus before that game was the Thunder's not going to be able to hang very long without Steven Adams. Well, Enes Kanter, an opponent that we'd seen him struggle to get on the floor against, he plays pretty well against them. Now, that third quarter, great point, Eric, it was just kind of a mess all the way around. But of the basketball, we'll get to the other stuff in a second, but of the basketball, Barry, what did you like about what the Thunder did last night?
Well, I thought the Thunder defended hard, not always well. A lot of times there's not a lot they can do, but I thought they put up a good fight defensively, especially without Adams. When Durant and Curry and those guys get going, sometimes you're powerless. But they bothered the Warriors enough. 13 first-half turnovers. That's really, 13 in the first half for Golden State turnover-wise, 0 in the third quarter. That's where your separation became. The defense eventually withered. You knew it was going to without Adams. But I think that's a decent place to start. This is not a Thunder team that's going to be able to put up 140 points in any game. They're not going to have a phenomenal game like that offensively, so they have to try to do it defensively. And I thought for a lot of the time they did.
Eric, did the third quarter and the game, in essence, turn with the defensive letdowns? Was that the change in your mind, or did you see something else happen out there?
Well, the turnovers the Thunder made themselves really put them in a bind, too. Golden State was able to get out in transition. Kevin Durant was able to hit some threes, hit some big shots. And also there was a play where there was a stoppage in play where the Thunder had a 5-on-4, and there was a stoppage, and then right after the stoppage in play, Domantas Sabonis hit a 3. And it obviously didn't count because they blew the whistle on it, but that really seemed to kind of hurt some of their momentum they had going. I think the Warriors went on a 5-0 or 7-0 run after that, and just some mind-boggling kind of decisions from Russell Westbrook in that span where it seemed like he was pressing a little, made a couple of passes that were questionable. He had that now infamous strange walk carry with the ball where he just starts taking off and walking. And, I've never seen anything like that before since I've been watching basketball, but you can almost kind of write that off as just like, that happened. Well, it doesn't happen from time to time, but it happened to Russell Westbrook in this instance. I was less disappointed with that particular turnover than I was with some of the passes that he made in a tight game where you can't really make those kind of critical passes and you have to value every possession. I don't think the Thunder valued possessions the way that they should have in that third quarter.
It's we've talked about Steven Adams' absence, and obviously the first game, Thunder coming off the back-to-back. Now this game without Steven Adams, the hype that's going to surround the third game, you almost wonder if we're going to have to wait till game 4 between these teams, to really see. Hopefully the Thunder's got all of its guys, everybody's healthy. but just the emotion of that first game and the third game, the first back in Oklahoma City for Durant, you sort of wonder if we're going to get a true gauge of everything with Steven Adams out there until maybe late in the year, Barry. It's just, and it would have been interesting to see Steven Adams out there last night because it really felt like there were a lot of eggshell walking players in that first game. Last night it was a little more just about basketball, it seemed like to me.
Yeah, I don't know that we're ever going to get a normal Thunder Warriors game anytime soon, though.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the animosity, with all the drama, we saw some of it last night. We actually now know that Kevin Durant has talked to Russell Westbrook. We've seen it for our very eyes. He did a little trash talking in the middle of the game. So that kind of drama is not going to go away this year. If they happen to play in the playoffs, it'll even get worse. So I think next year is the first time we could see some sort of sense of normalcy with this matchup. Mm-hmm. But clearly it was better last night in terms of at least the tension. Maybe it'll be better Game 4, but I just don't know that it may not ever. The ice may never thaw between Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Wouldn't surprise me if it didn't, knowing Russell.
Well, Barry brought it up, Eric. It wasn't me. The other stuff that you referenced before that everybody wants to talk about. So let's talk about work friends, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook for a second. Now, Russell did not admit to the fact that they actually spoke, although mouths were moving, the cameras caught it, so we know that there was at least some words being exchanged. But what did you make of the interaction? Because in that first game, you could almost sense that they were, really trying to ignore each other and not interact in any way. Last night, that changed a little bit.
Yeah, I was surprised that Kevin went up to Russell in the middle of the play of that stoppage as freely as he did. I didn't expect that at all, and I was like, oh, I wonder what Kevin's saying. and you can't see what Russell's saying because his back's to the camera, but then he kind of turns around and looks, and he gives one of those looks like I don't know what Russell's saying there either, but it looked more defiant than when Kevin's initial approach was. These guys obviously aren't on the best of terms right now. They're going to be in the same locker room for All-Star. They might even be starting together if the votes flip and these results come out in the next few hours. Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and Harden might all be starting in the starting lineup again, which brings up my theory once again. James Harden peacemaker at the All-Star game.
Yeah.
These guys both really respect James Harden. I've heard people talk about in the past however many hours that maybe the All-Star game is a chance for them to kind of put this thing to bed. It's probably not going to happen because I just can't see Russell Westbrook giving Kevin Durant the satisfaction. But it's fascinating to me that both of these guys can have such a good standing relationship with James Harden and just not. It's almost like they'd be like, "Hey, James, tell Kevin that he can go suck an egg," and then Kevin's like, "Hey, James, tell Russell that scoreboard or something like that." And James can be the go-between, but I think that's a fascinating relationship. These three guys that were obviously brothers and were very close on the Thunder, and how they've all ascended to this MVP caliber play this year, and how that relationship is going to go on the court and off the court at All-Star break is going to be fascinating to me.
By the way, don't remind Thunder fans of the three of those guys starting together, the possibilities that could have been if, they would have all stayed together.
It's not like they don't get that all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, they don't have to be reminded.
But to see them on the court together now as they are, okay. That'll be a conversation for another day. But, Barry, I think I brought this up a little bit ago as we were just talking in the newsroom. The level of intrigue as it relates to the relationship between Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, that fascinates me, that people care so much about it. I'm not sure, maybe it's just something to talk about, but does it matter if they get along? Does it matter if they hate each other? Why does it matter so much?
Does it matter in that it's not really keeping planets from colliding in the
yes,
atmosphere?
Right.
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But we're a society that likes to look at
cat videos
and Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. We like to focus on, and these are people we know or think we know. These are people we've seen literally thousands of times and interacted with on some level. So I think people just are intrigued by what has happened to this relationship and why did it get to this point and what's going to happen with it. It's just human nature, especially, the NBA does a great job. The Thunder does a great job at making you feel like you know these guys. And we feel like we knew Kevin Durant. We feel like we know Russell Westbrook. And now to see them at odds and see them mortal enemies, I mean, it's just fascinating. It's Lex Luthor versus Superman, and you just you can't avert your eyes.
Eric, is there something even deeper here? I don't want to get too crazy with Thunder Thursday talk here, but these guys work together for years. Do people just kind of want to think, if I work with somebody for that long and have a good relationship, that can last? Is there something beyond basketball and the talents that these guys have? Is it more personal for people that they just hope that something can get worked out between these guys?
I think some people hope that this thing goes on for as long as possible because it's good for ratings and writing.
Sure.
But I think that a lot of people also want to have a clear understanding of, as Barry said, how this relationship got to where it is. The same way that we obsess over the Shaq-Kobe relationship and how that fractured. Two guys that are as gifted as they are and seemingly have the basketball world in their fingertips in terms of being able to compete for championships year in and year out. How could it be that their relationship has gotten to this point? And people want answers. People want to know, we want it to be black and white. We want it to be there's a good versus evil, and I don't think it's that way at all. I don't think Russell Westbrook is the good guy. I don't think Kevin Durant's the good guy. I don't think Kevin Durant's the bad guy. I don't think Russell Westbrook's the bad guy. I've written about this. I wrote about this before the first meeting. These are two guys that might not have been destined to ever play with each other forever. The same way that Shaq and Kobe probably weren't destined to play with each other forever. It's just that people grow and change, and we're getting all into philosophical stuff that I'm sure nobody wants to hear about on Thunder Thursday. But it's fascinating, and we love to talk about it, and we love to dive into the inner workings and theories about why people dislike each other.
It's sports psychology to a whole other level. But I mean, it really is interesting because you see these guys seemingly get along, like each other, Barry, for however long. And now last night, I don't know what to make of all of this because there was Russell Westbrook kind of looking like he told Enes Kanter at one point to not talk to the Warriors. So clearly, not any love lost there that way. I mean, Russell Westbrook sort of continuing to wear that shell. Do you think the All-Star game could be a chance for at least to have some sort of communication there, Barry?
Oh, I doubt it. I mean, I'm not sure that Russell wants it to happen. And
I think he's okay with that, too.
In some ways, it comes across as really personal to Russell. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of ways, it's not personal. Kevin Durant plays for the other team. Mm-hmm. And that's really the way Russell Westbrook sees the world. Mm-hmm. Hey, there's my team and there's everybody else. And if you're not on my team, you're everybody else.
Yeah.
And Kevin Durant went from his team to everybody else. So, it's possible that Russell's fine with it this way. I mean, if he wasn't, he could do something about it. I think we all agree that Durant would probably, accept an olive branch or accept a peace pipe or, make amends, whatever. I don't know that Durant holds a grudge, but Westbrook's not interested, I don't think, in any kind of settlement talks.
Yeah, he doesn't mind grudges, I don't think.
And that's part of the reason why Westbrook is so revered by the older guard. Mm-hmm. There's a group of guys like Oscar Robertson and then the guys who played in the 80s who, the beef was real. These guys didn't chum it up the way we do now and with all the AAU ball and these guys vacationing together in the offseason.
Bad boys. And they actually they didn't like.
Right.
They weren't liked and they didn't like.
There was real beef. Russell Westbrook would have fit in perfectly playing 80s basketball with the high shorts and the aggressiveness. So, this is something that Russell Westbrook is so revered for and exalted for because he does have that competitive fire. And, you've been friends with a guy for however long, but it doesn't matter because now you're Miami.
Yeah. Speaking of Russell Westbrook, we haven't gotten to the most unlikely antagonist in this whole rivalry, Zaza Pachulia. Who saw that one coming, guys? Who thought Zaza Pachulia is suddenly the new archenemy of the Thunder?
Well, if we'd studied it, we could have seen it coming because, as it turns out, Zaza Pachulia is an NBA thug. I had no idea. Nobody told me. But this is a guy that is an instigator. He goes out and causes trouble.
He's gotten into it with Kevin Garnett.
You pick a fight with Kevin Garnett, you'll pick a fight with anybody. So he's gotten into a fight with David West, who's another tough guy. Now his teammate, they've made amends. But this is a guy with a long history. This is his 14th NBA season. He's been around a long time. He's got a long reputation as a instigator and a physical player who doesn't mind crossing the line. So if we'd have thought about it, if we'd asked this question of each other last week, we might have said, you know what, Zaza Pachulia might be the henchman for Kevin Durant. Take out some of Durant's. Durant's not going to start anything, but maybe Zaza will come to his aid. So we saw it last night. It was a hard foul. It was a legitimately flagrant one foul. We talk about nobody came to his aid. The worst part of it was the standing over part. That's what looked the worst on television. I'm not sure how much of the Thunder caught that. You could see it clearly on television. You didn't know exactly what was going on. Maybe they would have reacted differently if they'd have seen that. Maybe if Steven Adams had been there, something differently would have happened. But I think we're probably making too much of it, but it's great fun.
Yeah.
It's great fun to talk about.
Well, and what I thought when I first saw the play was, as I saw Russell Westbrook laying on the floor, I thought, Russell Westbrook just broke his nose. Like, I seriously thought he may be really hurt. And then I thought, wait, he's played with a dent in his face before, so he'll be fine. But still, I don't know. I think what Barry said about Steven Adams, though, may be right. If Steven Adams is out there, we talked about him just a second ago and how he might have changed, maybe not the outcome of the game last night, but could have kept the Thunder in it even longer. I'm not sure that Zaza Pachulia is quite the instigator on that if Steven Adams is out there, Eric.
Yeah, Steven Adams isn't going to pop off and punch Zaza Pachulia in the face, but at the same time, if he's standing eye to eye with Steven Adams, it's probably a little bit less to be a little bit less posturing and all this.
Yeah.
But I think too much has been made of that whole deal about the Thunder not coming to Westbrook's aid. It was a quick play. Oladipo said he didn't see everything that happened on the play. It didn't look like they recognized what was going on at the time. Russell Westbrook did well himself to step away from what happened, walk down to the other end of the court, and then come back and then voice his frustration after the game, which I thought was good. I think people are focusing too much on the feud and not enough about the Thunder actually playing a good game up until the point they lost their minds in the third quarter. Like, we're talking about this as if that was like the turning point in the game, or as if the Thunder would have ran to Westbrook's aid, that would have helped them defeat the mighty Warriors. Like, you're talking about winning small battles. We're talking about winning small feuds instead of winning an actual basketball game. So if people are more consumed with, hey, the Thunder needs to take up for Russell Westbrook and have more enforcement and get Zaza Pachulia out of there, they're missing the whole point that the Thunder blew a chance to really make a statement and really play a complete game against one of the best teams in the NBA.
Yeah, because, people saying that they need more enforcers or players. They need shooters, Barry, for crying out loud.
Yeah, you know what? This Thunder team, let's be honest, this Thunder team is not as physical as past Thunder teams. In the past, they had Kendrick Perkins. They had Serge Ibaka. Go back to the 2014 playoffs. Their front line was Ibaka, Durant, Perkins, with Adams coming off the bench. And
that's a tough guy.
That's pretty serious physicality. And they don't have that. Kanter's got a little bit of it, but not much. Laverne didn't even get off the bench last night. Sabonis is just a sweetheart of a 6'10" rookie. Maybe they'll get that. Their tough guys are Russell Westbrook and Steven Adams. That's who their tough guys are.
Right.
Kyle Singler, Anthony Morrow, Alex Abrinish. They got a bunch of sweethearts without outside of Adams and Russell Westbrook. And when Westbrook's one of the guys getting accosted, and Adams is back in Oklahoma City nursing a concussion, there are no tough guys to call upon.
Right. But like Eric said, having a tough guy, quote unquote, or more tough guys, that's not the answer on this team. The answer on this team is to have some guys that can help alleviate pressure off of Russell Westbrook, pressure off of some of the scores that I think they're developing down low, but just get crushed on because they don't have that outside shooting. Obviously trading deadline is not right upon us, but it's coming up, Eric. I don't know if there's any. Obviously, after last night and after these last couple games, after a rough showing against the Clippers, I think people want to know, can anything be done? Maybe not to get to that level, but to take some steps forward. Rudy Gay, injured, tore his Achilles, off the trade block, you would assume at this point for the Thunder. So where are things right now as it relates to potentially improving this roster?
You know, you still think about Enes Kanter. And as good as a player as he's been for the Thunder this season and in the past few weeks, his stock might never be as high as it is right now currently. Mm-hmm. So he's thrown himself into the fire as a legitimate chip for the Thunder to be able to offer to other teams to entice them to possibly part with a guy who's a wing player that can help them get some more scoring and get some more shot creation next to Russell Westbrook and Victor Oladipo. You know, the thing's always going to be with Kanter is his contract, the $17 million per season. He's got a few more years left on that contract, I think maybe 3 years. So it makes it difficult for a team to have to, you know, take that contract on and then give something back in return. But right now, I don't know if it's so much looking at the outside options as it is looking what the Thunder has to give other teams, and Enes Kanter is where you got to start.
Yeah. Is there anything, Barry, after this Rudy Gay situation that seems obvious or that you think the Thunder could potentially pull the trigger on?
No, you know, I still harbor the hope of an Otto Porter or someone. I think Washington could use an inside guy, but I think most people recognize the league's getting smaller, not bigger. Mm-hmm. The number of teams that really crave a big man and would give up something valuable, that's a shrinking pool. So I think it's most likely the Thunder does not make an impact trade. Probably will make a trade of some kind. They always do. Mm-hmm. But an impact trade, probably not. If I was guessing, I would say Enes Kanter's playing for the Thunder come playoff time.
Interesting. Hey, guys, before we get out of here, a couple things to look ahead to. As I've looked at the schedule coming up, I know everybody, after last night in that Warriors game, now thinking a lot about February 11th. That's the Warriors game here. First time Kevin Durant's back on Oklahoma soil since he left. But looking at the schedule leading up to that, next week or so, got some manageable games at the Jazz, not exactly manageable, they're tough, but then at the Pelicans, the Mavericks are here. But then, guys, man, this is a rough stretch. You've got games at Cleveland, at San Antonio, then the Bulls, Grizzlies, Trailblazers here, at Indiana, and then back-to-back Cavs, Warriors here. Eric, is this the retribution for home games and some easier games earlier in the schedule?
It all balances out. Every team's got to deal with it. The Rockets started their season with a ton of road games. They were able to overcome it. The great teams overcome it. And, you know, once the Thunder gets past that rough stretch, they're going to have a bunch of home games in February. So it's just something they're going to have to deal with. And, you know, that's why games like last night you have to look at from a standpoint of this being promising going forward. And if the Thunder plays 3 full quarters last night, you feel really good coming out of that game as opposed to 2 full quarters. So going into these games against Cleveland, San Antonio, Memphis, you got to see more of what you saw in the first 2 quarters last night against Golden State. Composed basketball, not throwing the ball all around, committing to defense, because as much as we keep saying the Thunder need shooters, they need to go get another guy, they still got to play better with the guys that they have, and they still got to get consistent night-to-night performances from the guys that they have as well.
Barry, it seems like with the run of games we were just talking about, that frustrating games could be on the horizon just because of just how tough that stretch is. And we've seen Westbrook have some times where he's gotten frustrated. You know, that game at Memphis springs to mind for me. This seems like a stretch where he's going to have to maybe be at his best if they're going to have the hopes of winning some of these games that are some pretty tough matchups.
Thunder has 4 days off. They don't play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Come back Monday night. Russell Westbrook needs this rest. This is like a virtual All-Star game, All-Star break for Russell Westbrook.
Without the All-Star game.
Without the All-Star game.
Yeah.
So I think it comes at a great time. He's clearly tired, maybe not physically so much, but mentally. I mean, to actually see the ball inbounded to an NBA point guard and he just walks up the floor holding the ball, I mean, that's clearly just a mental fatigue issue. So I think it's a case where he needs this break, and maybe he can come back and recharge. he's going to have to play well against this stretch. I mean, this is crazy. The sort of the conciseness of the toughness of this schedule, where the Warriors and the Cavaliers and the Spurs are all sort of condensed together in a pack of games. So they got to play well in that stretch, and they got a chance when Russell Westbrook's on top of his game, which he usually is. But it's starting to wear on him. I think he needs this break, come back refreshed, and maybe the Thunder can sort of navigate this tough schedule.
Lastly, we talked first off about All-Star starters coming up, being announced today, Eric, right? A little later today. What if Russell Westbrook is not a starter, which is a possibility, the way the voting had gone early amongst fans? Does that say anything in your mind? If he's not, if it's Steph Curry and James Harden instead of him as the two starting guards in the West?
It says the fans are crazy. It says that Golden State's got a lot of voting power in terms of their fan base, and there are a lot of bandwagon Golden State fans out there. And that's not to knock Golden State, the franchise. They run an excellent franchise, but there are more Golden State fans on earth now. It's just that you win, you get more fans. But Russell Westbrook's had a better season than Steph Curry. We get these all-star snubs all the time. He's still going to be on the team. He's still got a chance to go get his third straight all-star MVP, which would be something that's never been done before. It would have made for even better theater for all three of those guys, Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, to all be on the floor starting together in that game. But they're still going to have to interact with each other. We're still going to get all the crazy, juicy storylines we want and all the awkward comments from all three of those guys. And Russell saying nothing, Kevin saying a bunch, and James just smiling and everybody giving him the thumbs up because he's got a great beard and a great personality.
It all comes back to the beard, doesn't it?
James is he's the sun to the moons of Durant and Westbrook. James is going to win the MVP because everybody likes him. He's elevated that Rockets team to another level, and he's James Harden. He's got a great beard.
Well, you mentioned the MVP, Barry, and the third straight potential All-Star Game MVP for Russell Westbrook. What would also be crazy would be if Russell Westbrook isn't a starter, Barry, but wins that MVP. Now that would be something right there.
Yeah, and
not the All-Star MVP. I'm talking the MVP.
And he's got a chance. I actually think Harden's the man to beat, but I think the game against the Warriors on Wednesday night made a stronger case for Westbrook as the MVP. Because the constant theme from Van Gundy and Mike Breen and those guys was how easy the game's coming to Kevin Durant and how hard things are for Westbrook. And I think people recognize this. This is what Westbrook's doing is hard. Mm-hmm. And he's still getting a lot done. Has the Thunder, on a 48-47 win pace right now. So I think that game last night in some ways elevated Westbrook's candidacy. So I don't know if he'll make it. Harden's going to be very tough to beat if they stay on a 60-win pace. He's played fantastic. Can't argue with James Harden as MVP. But I do think that the All-Star game does matter to Russell. I think if he doesn't start the All-Star game, he has a chance because of it's weighted voting with the players and coaches as opposed to the media. So he's still got a chance. And if he doesn't make it, that's one more chip that's going to go on his shoulder.
One thing for Russell Westbrook in this second half of the season, because of all these marquee matchups the Thunder are going to be playing, that's going to be more eyes on him in terms of the night-to-night and being able to get people watching him playing against LeBron James, San Antonio 3 times, Golden State. It's going to be a great chance for Russell Westbrook to once again be on the showcase and be on the stage to, maybe unseat James Harden's MVP run.
You know what? All this talk about how much Russell Westbrook's doing actually just reminds me how great LeBron James is. I just always go back to those teams that he took to the finals. Nearly won NBA championships with your guys. You're like, wait, who? Unbelievable. And not to say that Russell Westbrook isn't unbelievable, but it just reminds you how spectacular LeBron has been for a lot of years and continues to be. But man, Westbrook's carrying a ton and still producing at a great rate. It's going to be fun to see what happens with that All-Star balloting. We know Eric will be writing about it. We'll be covering it for the Oklahoman and News OK. We'll have a ton more as All-Star weekend approaches, but obviously some great games before then to bring you as well. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.